welcome back to Crafting with Claus. I'm Jessica Kringle, also known as Mrs. Claus or Santa's wife, and I'm here to join you and count down the days until our favorite holiday, Christmas. And we are on day number 13, more than halfway there at this point. How exciting. And we're doing a different craft project every day. Now, remember when we made the Humikimo bracelets, and I told you that when there are some scraps left over, to hang on to those, because I was going to show you something that you can make out of those. And also I've told you that I'm an avid crocheter, and I showed you how to use the Nifty Knitter, and every time we do these projects there tends to be these little bits of yarn left over, and I like to put them into a bag and then use them for different craft projects. So today what I want to show you how to make is something called a yarn doll. So this is an example of one of the yarn dolls that I've made, and it's just made out of yarn. Now, these little yarn dolls don't have a face. Now, I know that in the Amish tradition, they never put faces on their dolls because they say that only God can create a face. And so I do wonder if the origins came to that, or whether they simply just don't have faces. Here's a little bit smaller one. This one has, the legs are separate, so this one's kind of wearing a skirt, it looks like, and this one's got little pants on, or little legs. You can also see that the arms are slightly different. These arms have been wrapped in the yarn that's used for the color for the shirt, and these arms were just left alone, like that. And then I have made, and I'm going to show you how to do this, a couple of the dolls made out of the thread that was left over from the bracelets that we were making the other day. And so here's one, and this one I've braided the arms so they're a little bit different, but still wearing a skirt. It would be just as easy if I wanted to separate that and make legs, to go ahead and either tie those with a little bow at the ends or to braid them also. And so there's that one. And then this one, I had such little bits of scrap left over, it kind of reminds me of the Guatemalan worry dolls. Have you heard of those? Those are so fun. So they come in this little pouch, and it's got all of these little dolls in there, and the little dolls have little bits of fabric and little bits of floss wrapped around them, and they're made of something with wire. And the legend with these is that at night, before you go to bed, you tell these little dolls all of your worries, all of the things that are troubling you, and then you go ahead and put them with your worries back into the little bag that they came with, and then you'll be able to sleep worry-free because you've given all of your worries away. So that's what this kind of reminded me of. I thought it was so cute, so you could make your own little worry dolls and tell them all of your troubles while you're sleeping, or right before you go to sleep. This one's also a little bit different. You can see that the arms are a completely different color than any of the other yarns that are in the rest of the body and the head. So what I did with this one was I actually braided a piece of, a length of the floss, the leftover floss, and then before I tied it together, and I'll show you how to do that, I just simply placed that inside of there and tied it off. And you want to make sure that it's nice and tight when you do, but that's how that one's a little bit different, and I'm going to show you what I mean in just a minute here. So let's go ahead and make the floss one first with the leftover that we have here with this floss from the bracelets. I've taken out 2 extra pieces so that I have something with which to tie the little, bows that go around the head and the arms and the waistline here. So what you do is you fold this in half, and I like to do it over my finger, but you don't have to. But you're going to fold that in half, and then you decide how big you want the head to be, and you take a little piece of your floss that you have here, thread, and you're going to do that famous square knot that we keep doing in all of our projects. Now I like to hold this off to one side so that it divides the yarn in half, and I have more to tie later. So I'm not just using the center of it, I'm using an edge. So right over left and under, and then left over right and under, and that makes our non-slipping square knot, and you want to get those nice and tight there. And then if you wanted to, you could tie a bow around the neck, or you can just, in this case, I'm going to just cut it because I don't have a lot of the thread left. And when you cut, you'll have one piece that unfortunately goes to the landfill, but not a lot that you can do with something that small. And then you've got another piece that you can use for, tying off something else. Now, if you think you got the head just a little bit bigger than you wanted to, you could very carefully and very slowly just sort of slide this up, work it up just a little bit, and it'll make that head just a little bit smaller, if that's what you want to do. Now, for the arms, what I did was I took the red, so I had red arms, and I pulled 3 pieces of red thread out on each side of our little doll. So there's 3 on that side, and then I've got 3 on this side, and then what I did for this one is I went ahead and braided those, and when I lay it down, I want to set something. You can either safety pin this. So if you're working on a cloth, like I've got my tablecloth right here, you could safety pin it to that so it doesn't slip. Some people, when they're working on these kinds of things, they'll safety pin it to their breeches so that it doesn't slip around. And then I'm just going to braid it. Now, if you don't want to braid or you don't know how to braid, that's fine. There are YouTube videos nowadays that can teach you to do almost anything. So you can watch some of those, or you can ask someone who does know how to braid to help you. And this one I'm just kind of doing loosely. And then when I'm done, I will take the piece of string again and tie off that arm right over left and under, and then left over right and under. And then I'm going to turn it over and do the very same thing to the other side. So a loose braid, and then when I'm done, I will tie it with my square knot. And then we're going to go ahead and snip those so that they're the same size. And then our last step is to go ahead and tie a piece around the center for the waistline. So we'll take our last piece of string here, and we're going to just go ahead and tie around there. Now again, I've been cutting these off to not have any bows. They're just little pieces sticking out, but you can certainly tie them in a bow if you want to. The other thing that you can do is once you've tied this, you can take the pieces of string and just fold them down. If they're long enough, they can blend into the little skirt that you've got going on here. Okay, and there we go. We've got another one of these. Now, wouldn't that make a fun gift for someone? You could give that to a little girl or a little boy, or put it on a card that you're making, or hang it on a tree, or these little ones would look cute on a miniature tree. Sometimes people put those together if they don't want a great big tree this time of year in their house. All right, so let me show you some tricks on making the ones that I have out of yarn. So what I've done with that one is I borrowed a book. So this is The Good Earth by Pearl Buck. Excellent book. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It was required reading for me in 10th grade, which was eons ago, of course, but really, really good book. I enjoyed it. So the first thing you need is a bunch of pieces of either the yarn or the floss that are the same size, or basically the same size. So if we wrap it around this book, we're going to get that. You don't want to wrap it too tightly because when you cut it, it will bounce back and they'll all be different sizes. The other thing you want to make sure of is that you aren't just wrapping in the same spot, because the ones on the outside, because of the length of it going around, will be a little bit bigger than the ones that were underneath. So join with me now. We're going to count to 20, which is less than we've counted to in the past, but we want to go around this book 20 times. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All right. Now the reason that a book is so convenient for this is that, very carefully of course and with respect, you've got a slot to slip those scissors and go ahead and make your cuts to the pieces that are then pretty much the same size. Okay, how wonderful is that? Very easy, right? Instead of counting them all out one by one. Now this one we want to be able to hang it, so the first thing we'll do is cut a little scrap of a different color, and right in the very center of this we're going to do our square knot again. So right over left and under, pull it tight but not so tight that we break the yarn, and then left over right and under, and that's what connects it to our little doll that we're going to make. And then now, in order to be able to hang it somewhere, we want to do the kind where you wrap it around your finger and then tuck it in, and that gives it a little hanging loop. You should be able to hang it from tree if you want to, and then of course you can just cut those two little pieces to make them level. All right, so now we need to take a piece of yarn and create the head section. So I got a little bit of green here, and what I'm going to do is, instead of cutting a piece, I'm going to actually just tie it with it on here, because the nice thing about square knots is that you're really only moving one piece. It's the piece that starts out on the right. So right over left and under, and then left over right and under, see, this didn't even move the whole time. And then when I cut them about the same size, I can tie it into a bow if I want her to have a bow, him or her, depending on what kind of doll you're making. Or I can just cut it and not have that. So there we go. We've got that. Now what we're going to do is take 4 pieces of yarn, and those are going to be the arms. I'm not going to braid them this time. I'm just going to tie them. Now, if you like to be very meticulous and particular, then certainly you'll want to measure to see how far each arm is, so that they're the same length. If you've been doing this for as long as I have, then you get pretty close by just eyeballing things. So I'm going to go ahead and tie this one. And again, we're using those square knots that I taught you to make. And then this one I'm not going to tie into a bow. I'm just going to snip so that there's a little edge, and then I need to snip the leftovers off so the arms aren't too long, and also so it creates what looks like little hands there. So now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Right over left and under. You should have this memorized by now, huh? Pretty close, huh? Right over left and under, and then left over right and under. Right, and then I will trim that. And then take the arms and trim the little hand section off. And now what we'll want to do is create the waist. So again, we'll take our string here, our little pieces of yarn, and decide where we want the waist to be. And another square knot. See, this is a big project of square knots. You're making several per doll, huh? So right over left and under, left over right and under. You should be a big pro at this right now. Okay, And again, I'm going to just snip instead of tying a bow on that one. And there we have a little doll. So what we could do is, you know, again, we could create some legs if we wanted to. This one isn't really long enough to braid it the way it's, but I do like to, when these are uneven, go ahead and give them a snip across the bottom so that they're closer to the same size together. Tighten these up just a little bit. Now remember, we don't use scissors on our siblings' hair or our own hair. This is just for craft projects, so don't get in trouble with your parental figure on that one. Right. And yes, while there's just a little bit of waste, it's still a lot less than it would have been had we just thrown that whole ball of yarn away. And there we go. We've made a little yarn doll out of our leftover scraps from previous projects. I've got a little bit more. I can make some more of these if I want to. Use them in different colors. So I hope that you had fun. I hope that you make some of these. If you do, I would love to see what you come up with. I do have that Facebook page, Jessica Kringle. You can take pictures of it and show me what you've done. I'd love to see it. All right, well, I hope you'll join me tomorrow and we'll be making something else to count down those days until Christmas. And thanks so much for joining me.